The Lawrence case highlighted the change in attitude since the early 80s. Stephen Lawrence was a national tragedy, a long way from the days when all black people were automatically treated as foreigners.
Have you been over here long?
Yes, I'm here from March.
The distance travelled is nowhere more obvious than in television. The arrival of the first generation of West Indian migrants coincided with the growth of British television in the 1940s. The medium has both reflected and played a part in changing attitudes.
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
You just have to look at television. But people are part of the society now. They've got Trevor MacDonald and Maurice George, and everywhere you turn, things have changed considerably. For my day, things have changed.
But let's hear first of all from Cy Grant.
The market strike is over today. Mr. Frank Cousins has had his way, but he ran into...
Cy Grant was the first black face to make an impression on British viewers when he became a regular performer on the BBC's long-running nightly show, Tonight.
I'm surprised they didn't throw tomatoes about. Blocks have got rotten since they came out. We're bringing you the news you ought to know.
I remember Cy Grant, yeah, he was one of the few black people that were on television in the 60s that you would stop and listen to. But there weren't very many British black people doing it when I was growing up. There weren't very many role models, apart from American people, to sort of aspire to.
In the 50s and 60s, it was rare to see a black artist on TV. Even for a big name like Cy Grant, opportunities were scarce after The Tonight Show ended.
There were very few roles. Black people were, in those days, were not policemen or lawyers or doctors. They did not exist. So the roles that you played had to reflect your role in society. So it was very limited role. There was nothing like integrated casting. There were no kind of black producers or directors in television.
Where black performers did appear, their roles were all too often negative or belittling.
I remember I liked The Goon Show, and there's a guy called Ray Ellington who had an orchestra, and he played the break in the middle of The Goon Show. And when they introduced him, I always remember Peter Sellers and Spike Milligan used to go, and here comes that crazy chocolate-covered coon, Ray Ellington. Well, what kind of talk is that? You know, you'd be enjoying the show, and they'd say something like that. You can imagine how it made you feel.
Belly to belly, I don't give a damn, cause I done did already. Back to back, belly to belly at the zombie jamboree. 2, 3, zombie.
I also remember the black guy in the Spinners. He was astounding. I did a joke about him in the last show I did, that he was there with his finger stuck in his hair singing, you know, dance, dance, wherever you may be. I am the lord of the dance, said he. You know, every so often they'd let him sing the West Indian song or do the Anansi story or something. Oh, for God's sakes, you know. Just once I wanted to grab the mic and say, I shot the sheriff. But knowing him, he'd have probably gone, no, go no more, a sheriff shooting, sheriff shooting, sheriff shooting.
Back to back, belly to belly at the zombie jamboree. Last time now.
You know, it was very difficult, I think. People needed to be shown that there was a possibility that you could do something. And I think that's what whole generations were waiting for, the ticket.
Mr. Charlie Williams.
In 1971, at a time when the climate towards black people was at its most hostile, a British-born black comedian emerged.
Most of the Yorkshire accent, because born and bred here. Won't call it blackface, but coloured. And it took off. People were saying, you don't hear that darky. He talks right broad Yorkshire. So it sounded twice as funny with a Yorkshire accent.
Good afternoon, my flowers. Right colour, wrong accent.
I think it was a huge culture shock for people. And Charlie exploited it to the full, you know. He was the king of comedy for a while, and God bless him, good luck to him. Because at the time, nobody was doing what he was doing. He was playing the kind of fat belly, bigoted northern comedian at their own game.
Is that in colour? I hope it is. If it's in black and white, you've got a negative.
That joke was made out of... Look, I'm aware that this is what some white people think, so I'm going to say it first before you guys say it. I just think it was the times, and you did what you had to do to survive in a predominantly white world.
Charlie Williams' success opened the door for a new generation of black comics. One of them, a teenager from Dudley in the West Midlands.
From strength to strength. This boy is only 16 years of age. Talented, house-trained, and very, very funny. Ladies and gentlemen, it's got to be Lenny Henry.
All you saw was a guy leaning over a pram, a huge fella leaning over a pram, and you heard Frank Spencer's voice coming out of him. And then he turned round, and he was Lenny Henry. And he was a black... And he thought, oh, but there's an instant shock.
I'll fix it later.
You know, I think 12 or 13 million people saw this black kid doing these sort of half-funny jokes. But the hook was, wow, he's black, he's really young, and maybe he's got some... Maybe this kid's got something. What do you think? What do you say? Give him a chance. Give the kid a chance.
He wasn't a university comic. He wasn't a middle-class comic. He was a working-class kid from Dudley. And he learned his trade on the black and white minstrels.
So they built a town around him, and they call it Okie. Where's that? In Alabama.
People in Britain watched this show, and nobody ever mentioned that these people were blacked up. It was always, oh, aren't the songs lovely? And, oh, look at those costumes. And aren't those sets great? And people were pissed off about it, sure. But it was... People go, oh, what? This is not a racial show. This show isn't a racial issue. They're just great songs. Nobody ever faced up to this fact of, well, why are all these guys blacked up? What's going on there?
Dreaming of a white Christmas. You got no chance.
I was a young guy. I was like 17, 18 when I was doing the show. And every so often, it was like I was split into two. And on my shoulder was this thing of, you know, there's a fundamental problem with you being in the show, don't you, Len? And the other side were going, oh, just take the money and have a great time, you know. But this voice on my right shoulder just got bigger and bigger until eventually I couldn't live with it anymore.
And then he went on and did Tiswas, which really did cement him. And he was on those brilliant impressions. He was Trevor McDonagh.
It's just been announced from Stockholm that Vladimir Kurtz, the Russian bell ringer, who was exiled for ringing his church bells all through the night, has been awarded this year's No Peace Bell Prize.
Yeah. Trevor McDonald was a perfect vehicle for them because he was on the news and he was the only black newsreader at the time. And it was great. Yeah. And I would watch him and it was just, he had a little smile that he did of news reports, and he had a little head inclination that he did. And this, and that, and the other. Jeff McDonald, use at 10, London, you know, and he had this thing. And I just thought, he's a great bloke, a great character.
But the big prize of the night, the gold medal, went to Trevor McDonald.
As Lenny Henry rose to become Britain's favourite comedian, Trevor McDonald became the nation's favourite newscaster.
Since that time, it's been unusually quiet here. The view is gaining ground here, that we might be witnessing the beginning of the end.
That's news at 10 tonight. We're here again tomorrow. I sometimes feel that I have achieved almost nothing on my own, and that almost...
As black faces became a familiar part of the television landscape, another arm of popular culture was experiencing something new. The music industry, used to importing black Americans, discovered a black British voice.